Are we rolling?
We are rolling.
Well, all right. Which from the podcast I've heard is where you start. You just say, well, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to stop doing that because the first two are, all right, are you ready?
Well, are you ready?
I am ready.
Good.
Hey, John Michael.
Hi, Jordan. Welcome to your show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have you on your show anytime. Actually, I would have you on your show every time.
Yeah, I think that's the way it has to work.
Unless you have a substitute, but there's no substitute for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. What are you calling this podcast?
This podcast is called Hey, Earthling.
And that's how it said, hey, Earthling.
Hey, Earthling.
Is it kind of like you're flying by in your spaceship and you just like pause, put the window down and go like, hey, Earthling.
Hey, Earthling. Yep. Yeah, it's a way to open it up to everyone.
Well, everyone on Earth.
Everyone on Earth. Yeah.
Yeah. So being a little selective there.
Yeah. I think aliens have a good sense of humor, though. Better than us, hopefully.
Have you had any on your show so far?
Any aliens? Not yet, but we're new, so I think they're gonna come.
I think I spoke with one who's kind of alien.
Yeah.
She was on your show.
Yeah. Very true.
The one thing I take away from talking to Mary, she's like, I can't believe he asked, like, are you really asking me that? I recall that. I said, how would you experience it? She said there was a moment, it was like, are you really asking me that?
Yeah, I decided early on that I don't want to shy away from things on this podcast, which I'm sure is going to push my, certainly my early guests a lot farther. Because even on the first episode I recorded, halfway through, I was like, oh yeah, when I was in Switzerland on acid, I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, are we going to talk about that? Or we're just going to put that out there? And it's like, yeah, this is who I am. I'm not going to shy away, because what's the point of even doing this if I'm not going to be authentic with it? I want to put myself out there, and obviously it's a crazy thing to do. It's you open yourself up to a heightened state of receiving love and receiving hate, and they're gonna come equally and at times very unequally, and it's yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
all the emoticons,
all of them. And I mean, I had to have a moment where I looked in the mirror and had a heart to heart with myself, where I was like, if when this is your Pandora's box, when you open this, you're releasing your anonymity and your love of being anonymous and being a private person, and you're putting it out there. And whether 100 people listen or 10,000 people listen, it's going to change my existence. It's going to change who I am in this world. But it feels too important to pass up. I feel like it's something I want to do. It's feel like something I can do. And I would much rather explore communication with people than continue to just be a grunt laborer for construction. Not that that's a horrible thing, but I've done it for a long time and I want to change. And I'm ready for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's a threshold cross.
Yeah.
I just crossed the threshold in a mild way recently when I was home with family, a funeral. My godfather died. And so I got to see a lot of family, including 2 elderly aunts, one who's 98, and asked me if I'd help her to plan her 100th birthday, because we already started talking about bringing in a big band, like a Jimmy Dorsey, Glenn Miller kind of thing. And she got really excited. She is so alive. And my other aunt is, I think, around 90. And my aunt said, so what's happening in your world? Like, she really wanted to know. And so I thought about it for a moment, and I just went, well, I just started dancing burlesque. And she loved it. And I said, for now, let's keep that between us. Not quite ready to announce that to the rest of the family, but leaking it out a little bit.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, that's something that I've appreciated about you since I met you, is that you have so much vibrance in your life. And I think part of owning that and continuing to hold that in ourselves is to never stop exploring and never stop growing and trying new things. And yeah, to start burlesque at any time after 50 is a different journey to take. You know, it's not the path well traveled.
No. Apparently not. Especially on the first day when I arrived, I look around and I thought there would be some other men, because it seems a lot these days that workshops, pole dancing, whatever, obviously yoga. When I started yoga, I think it was mostly women. So it was a long time ago, 25 years ago. And, you know, before yoga was big, aerobics and that kind of dance, I used to go to that and I'd be like the only man in class. So kind of used to that. But these days, you know, especially with gender fluidity and so on, I thought, you know, pole dancing class, there's going to be some men there, and burlesque, I thought there would be a few men as the only man. And I thought there would be some people within, you know, 20 years of my age. No, not even close. It's like all 22 to 26-year-olds.
Yeah.
So when you choose to move towards what's alive in you and what's alive in the world and what has life and vitality, you don't know who else is going to show up from the outside wrapper. But what's going on the inside feels very connected.
Yeah.
And the burlesque troupe, for instance, all these girls are going for it in terms of their sexual expression and expression as a being of their gender and wanting to be alive and wanting to take risks. It's the same fucking thing that's alive in me. I'm in the midst of and maybe I always will be call it like a sexual reawakening. And so it doesn't matter if it's your first time around, second, third, or fourth. Like when things are alive and want to be expressed, and there's like a energy.
Yeah.
We can feel that in each other.
Yeah.
And more, just in this domain. Just happened the other night, met somebody and just through friends said she's new to our community. I said hi. And we just then kind of looked into each other's eyes for a few moments and smiled really broadly. And we were there for like a minute or two, just like with each other. And I broke the ice of not talking and just said, so tell me 3 things that you're really passionate about right now in your life. Like just went there immediately. That was the first question.
Yeah.
And then I just said, don't use words. And she immediately went into it. And then we just were there with each other for a while, and we laughed and got teary-eyed and like ecstatic. And then the last thing I said to her before we went off and had our own experience for the evening, I was like, I don't even know why I asked you that question, because I already knew all of that from the moment we looked at each other. And you knew that those things were alive in me too. And she's like, and that was that. So more and more humans, I believe, are finding each other, you know, if they're open and tuning.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, my truck broke down last night.
Sorry to smile. You already told me. It's worked out. She's out there.
Yeah. But it's an interesting thing that the tow truck driver I got, we were in the tow truck for an hour towing my truck back to Denver from where I was near Fort Collins. And we had such an awesome conversation. And he's just this, big ex-army, ex-oil field worker. And, it seems like we couldn't have less in common, but we connected so deeply. And we were able to talk the whole time back and just open up about, his experience in the Army and on the oil field. And we got to connect deeply. And, one of the things that he said to me that I really enjoyed was that he went into business for himself. And he's like, I don't know if it's going to work, but I feel like I have to take the chance. And he's 43. And this is his first time going off on his own. And he's like, well, the thing that I'm seeing is that, I just kept working for the man, and I'm not appreciating what's going on with people, corruption on all aspects of our reality. And he's like, I just feel the one thing that people are missing is just like spreading the love. And I was like, man, I'm a hippie. That's what our whole community is about. But to see a guy on such a different avenue who's feeling the same thing, who wants to just be a good person, I feel that that's the beauty of all the negativity that's going on right now. Is it continues to push more and more individuals into just being the exact opposite of that.
And taking the risks to speak or come on podcast or Facebook Live, whatever it is, which essentially means to, if we're going to talk energetic, you're vibrating those energies. So even if you're not speaking at the moment, people are feeling themselves more. And the more we feel ourselves, the more our radio waves, if you will tune to each other and we find each other.
Yeah. And I think that's a very important point of living more authentically. That's kind of my challenge to myself with doing this podcast is like, I just want to live out loud a little more and put myself out there. And what I feel that has done for me in the past is exactly that. Attracted the people that see who I am, in woo-woo language, see my light. Get to get a feel for me beyond just that kind of normal everyday humdrum interaction that we've been pushed into for the more professional aspects of this world, which have their place, but we need balance.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's what humanity as a whole is searching for constantly, really, is just more of a balance. And it continuously swings back and forth, to where positive movements turn into negative movements and negative things bring out the positive in us. And I don't think that dance is ever going to end. I used to think that a utopia was on its way, either the utopia or the apocalypse. But I think those ideals will always be there, both the apocalypse and the utopia forever, because that's the dance of being a human. It's the yin and the yang. It's the light and the dark. And you can't get rid of either.
I find it interesting when you say that we're always going for balance. I know of a person who has a coaching business that's called, I'm not going to say the exact name of it, but it's something like life in just the right balance kind of idea. To me, that's like a needle is right on the balance point, right? Like if you have two things weighed out. I do think that some people really want to feel that point most of the time. I don't particularly relate to that. I do think of the yin yang where, it's like sometimes I want to go into the dark.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to go to the light. And the balance, yeah, I seek that enough. Like I took a long hot shower this morning, to help balance out some things I was feeling.
Yeah.
But then I turned on cold at the end. I'm like, okay, felt enough of the, relaxed ease. And now let's go into something.
Yeah.
And so, whether it's the burlesque or jumping off a waterfall or a bridge or something like that. I haven't done that in a while, but it's one of those things where it does not at all feel like restoring balance. Unless the balance for me is like, okay, life's been too boring. I need to like get some adrenaline going here.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're just noticing that.
Yeah. And that's exactly, I definitely relate to that of just, and to that exact example, like I've been jumping off higher and higher cliffs for the last few years and just as ways to push myself. And I feel like that it's not necessarily the exploration of balance to like get there, but I feel like it gives you a wider balance point, because the more you can live in uncomfortability, you don't have to have the needle right at 90 degrees. Suddenly you have 10, 15, 30 degrees of play to where your balance is. And I think that that's where you can create magic in yourself of just like, oh, even though I got knocked way out of balance, I only have to get back a few degrees to feel at least more grounded in myself, to come from a more authentic and reasonable place in myself.
Right. Yeah, I'm curious about your cliff jumping experiences. Have you found that, you get to a new height and then maybe find another place that's like, oh, this is about the same height. I can do that. I've done that before. And yet still scares the fuck out of you. Yeah. Like you're like, well, wait, I've done this before. Yeah. And then one time you go find one that's like 5 feet higher only. Maybe it's 3 feet higher. It's like a whole new experience. It's like you just when you think you're comfortable, like, okay, I know what the ripples on the water look like from here. I can still see them. Yeah. From here, is the water flat or is it just that high up?
Yeah, exactly. Like the small changes, it can make such a huge difference. The last one I did that was the highest one I've done was down in Hawaii. And I was at a spot.
I think I'm going to actually feel this when you say it, so I'm preparing myself.
I was sitting at a spot on the rocks and one of the locals was there. And he goes, it's locals. Actually an easier jump if you come up here.
Fuck you.
Exactly. So I climb another 10 feet higher and I'm like, whoa, man, like this is a jump. Like this is a good distance.
I can feel it.
Yeah. And he just goes, yeah, man, just make sure to push off so you don't hit any of the rocks below. Thanks.
Yeah. How much push off? Like heroic push off? A kind of a push off? Like, yeah. Because I just lost all feeling in my legs, so I'm not even sure if I'm going to know I pushed off.
Exactly. And I mean, it was the first time where I pushed and I was falling, and there was enough time to be like, oh,
I might have fucked
wow,
up.
I am still falling.
And still falling. Is there an and still falling?
There wasn't an and, but there was a I am still falling.
So it's higher than 10 feet, higher than 20.
It was
feeling
above 30 for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm bad at knowing heights, because there was an edge I stood on in France. There wasn't a cliff jump, but it was a cliff sheer drop off, and I put my toes up to the edge and stood up and I was like, lift your head. And I looked out, and I mean, my heart was pumping. Yep. And I was like, man, that had to be 150 feet up there. And then
were you thinking about jumping just to feel the sensation, or you were just thinking about not jumping, which is kind of the same? It's kind of the same.
No, this was to earth. This wasn't over water. So this was a cliff. This was not even a jump that could be made, but it was just something where I wanted to feel that edge. I wanted to really stand there. And I ended up Googling it later, and it's a 500-foot cliff.
Wow.
And
hold on, I need a moment.
Yeah, it was an intense one, just to really. And it's funny because looking at the photo, the one thing I don't like is that I didn't push my chest out. My shoulders are still. But I mean, it's, there's something about going there in yourself, taking these steps beyond your boundary level, pushing it a little bit.
Even imagining.
Yeah.
Our friend Mary last night was asking in conversation, what's the difference between fantasy and desire? And the thought is, in fantasy, there is desire, right? It's a way of addressing desire. But what we kind of agreed on is fantasies are trying something on. Like even standing over that cliff, you may not have thought about it, but maybe you're trying on like, what would it be like to fall off of this? Or at least what is it like to stand on the edge with the risk that you could fall?
Yeah.
Which includes a little bit like feeling that sensation that you might be falling. Mm-hmm. So what does it feel like to put our toes over the edge of something, even if that's monogamy? Or polyamory, depending on which orientation we're coming from.
Yeah.
What is it like to step out and be the lead singer for a song versus just the guy who's behind the drum kit?
Yeah.
Where if you hit a wrong beat, it's over in a second. Whereas if it comes out of your mouth, it just seems to last the whole night. But put your toes over the edge, right? And you imagine being there, and you imagine a crowd, you imagine an audience, or you imagine this relationship. Putting over your toes, that's like fantasy, right? It's, in a sense, it's trying on different scenarios. And what happens in that, be a little somatic here, is we're conditioning our body for the potential of that experience. And if it doesn't blow us up and we don't totally dissociate, then we might even do it. In my experience with cliffs, it was a waterfall in Hawaii where I was going with a group of people and we were talking about it on the hike, like we're going to this cliff, and I couldn't even talk. I was just like, people were like, you gonna do it? I'm like, we'll see, and we get close and I feel compelled to like consider the experience. So I can hear the water rushing because you're going to jump down next to the waterfall. And it was pretty high up. Maybe it's 30 feet or so. And I went out to the edge and hung my toes over with other people to look. I'm like, fuck. And I walked back and I could still feel my body. My heart was racing. everybody's like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to do it. I'm going to know if I'm going to do it, and people were like, well, I don't know who's going to go first. And then out of my mouth came, out of the way. And I just took off running and went off. Because I realized I was at the throes of like, if I sit here to wait till I feel like doing it, it's not going to happen. I assessed like, okay, the locals go off this. They say the water's a bit higher than usual. Chances of survival are good. Mm-hmm. I think they pointed to the spot where you're supposed to land. I want to make sure I clear the rocks. Go. Yeah. But there's going to be a gap between what we condition our body for. Like, okay, I can imagine doing that. It feels scary and all that. And I'm just going to sit here till I feel totally comfortable with it before I do it. Ain't no action in that. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Unless the fantasy is about chocolate or vanilla ice cream.
Yeah. Desire will overcome that fantasy quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas when it's a real challenge, the mind has a way of psyching itself out, and it's good at it. It's very good at it. And that's, where like I feel like cliff diving is such a good example because you literally have to take the jump,
Wait, diving or jumping? Diving?
I've never gone head first.
Yeah. I think I have actually.
Yeah.
That's a whole different monster, but.
Yeah. I've done a high diving.
Yeah.
But not out in the wild.
Right.
Yeah. But I think it's such a good example because it all rests on you. And it's such a beautiful example of mind over matter because you have to make your body jump because your body's going, no, that's danger. I'm not going over there. What are you, crazy? I could get hurt. And mine's got to be like, we'll be fine.
And it's slightly different from asking that girl out that you're not sure if she actually likes you or not. Because you go, what's the worst that could happen? She's going to say no. And then I'm going to call my buddy and go, oh my God, she turned me down and I feel lousy. It's like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
Go ask another girl out. With cliff diving, is like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I might splat on these rocks and die. Because the locals were like, wait, don't jump off on that side. Yeah. That's not what we meant. Or the water's a little low. Like you don't actually know until you go.
Yeah.
So to face death, which reminds me of an experience like this that I had at Burning Man, was probably my most incredible experience where it was actually about facing death. And I don't know if we have time for that story.
Yeah. I do.
Because I have to go. I know you do. Because I have to go.
Yeah.
Because I have burlesque rehearsal. Speaking of jumping off cliffs.
Yeah.
How long are your podcasts usually?
Usually around an hour.
Okay. So this one won't qualify for an episode, even though this has been really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it could be.
Unless we pair it with a second taping.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it could be the taste of John Michael.
And the taste of Jordan. Okay. Quick story.
Yeah.
Okay. I think what this story is about is I think it's, we don't really get to know before we go. And this hanging the toes over the edge of the cliff for the sake of a bigger experience. And that we can sometimes imagine enough so that our nervous system goes, okay, I think I can survive this. Let's try it. And then other times we don't know. Like we actually think we might die. This is a story of one such experience. It started – as many of my Burning Man experiences have strangely started in a porta potty, which I now consider to be portals into experience. It's 3 a.m. It seems to be a time capsule too, or a time portal too, because it's happened to me at that time. 3 a.m. I just go in a porta potty and peeing before I head home to bed, because kind of done with the day. Mm. And I get this surge of energy and a thought that there's this experience at the burn that scares me called the Thunderdome. It's like out of Mad Max. So there's a dome and they have bungee cords hanging from it with clips, carabiners, and they have harnesses and 2 people who may have a feud or not yet, who just want to go up against somebody, get clipped in, and then they get kind of a bat. It's a soft bat, but still. And then they pull back and like go into each other, and there are people all over the top of the dome and all around it screaming and yelling for blood. I'm like, I have not, and I was considering, I don't know when I'll burn again. This has been kind of a year for me to go like, I want to really give myself the choice next year of whether I come back or not. I've gone 7 years now. And so I was like, I never did the Thunderdome. I want to do the Thunderdome. So this burst of energy comes out, and as I zip myself up, I take my form and I bash the door open of the porta potty, and I come storming out in big strides, and I say to the first group of people who are in conversation, nothing at first. I'm just like, my chest is heaving, and I'm like, and they notice me, and they stop talking, and they face me, and I said, who wants to fight me in the Thunderdome? And this woman comes up and she goes, I might want to fight you. And I'm like, didn't expect that. And she's kind of big, and, it could be a battle. And then I hear this voice, bigger than all of our voices, roar out, I will fight you right here, right now. And the crowd parts, and I hear this diminutive little blonde woman go, no, Ian, no. And the other woman goes, oh no, not this. And there is, out of central casting, a fucking Viking of a man, so gorgeous, with blonde hair tied back and shaved heads and a kilt, and he's got an Irish brogue, and he's just like, right here, right now, I will battle you. I will take you on in a slag battle right here. And he's pawing at the dust, and it like stuff is coming out of his mouth, and his arms, which are the size of my thighs, are just like rippling and veins popping. And I'm like, holy fuck. Out of this portal of a porta potty, I just manifested a battle right here, right now. And the women are trying to stand between us and going, no, Ian. And I have a thought. Am I prepared to die for my belief that I manifest exactly what I next need in life? I'm like, it's Burning Man. Yes, I do. So I said, all right, Ian, battle on. And the crowd parts, and now we're face to face, and I could feel his breath, and he's snorting, and he's stomping, and the dust is between us. And I'm looking up, and my neck is already starting to hurt from looking up at him. And I said, I just have one question before we start. And I'm like, okay. As I'm stalling, I'm like, I have humor, I have love, and I have wheels. Like, I could run, which I don't want to do. And I have these other 2 things. I say, Ian, before we start, I need to know one thing. What is a slag battle? And I like look around. I'm like, I don't have any weapons. And I'm like, what is it? He says, a slag battle is a battle of compliments. I go, oh, I might live. And I'll pause right there. The rest of the story is quite beautiful. I fell in love with this man and we had a full-on battle. And the crowds coming out of the porta potties to see this to its end. And there were 3 rounds, each round completely different. And they weren't always about compliments. And each time I thought, maybe this is where I die. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Coming right to the edge of like, I might die. Or I might really live.
It's truly the place where we do live. Awesome. John Michael, thanks so much for showing up today.
Jordan.
To be continued.
Yeah. Thank you so much for showing up. I love that you're holding the space, and it's been a privilege to be with you.
Appreciate that, brother. Same.
We out.
We out. Bye, Earthling.
Do you have a saying yet? What do you say at the end of your show?
Well, with one of the guests, he said, do you say bye, Earthlings? He said, we started it with hi, Earthling. I was like, all right. I'll do.
Earthlings, we out.
Earthlings, we out.
Yeah.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers.